Runsmith Enterprises presents episode 18 of Topics in Endurance Sports. I'm your host, Tim. Today is Tuesday, May 29, 2018. Yesterday was Memorial Day, so a special thank you to those who gave their lives in defense of our country. Today's topic, Ashley and Tim sweep UROC. You can find out more about me at my website at runsmith.net. There you can find my email, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter information, as well as information about my coaching services. Yes, I am a running coach. Please check that out. A little bit about last episode, which was episode 17, where I talked about two races I did, a 50K in Iowa, the Hawkeye 50K, and a trail marathon in Louisville, Kentucky, the Backside Trail Marathon. I forgot to mention that during the 50K, we had a kind of an interesting incident happen. I talked about how windy it was. It was extremely windy during the race. It's the same weather, basically, they had at the Boston Marathon. Very similar weather. It was the same weekend. And the course is a two-loop course, 25 kilometers per loop. And on the second loop, I was out in the trail portion of this race. This race has a bunch of different surfaces that you run on, but one part is single track and kind of the most trail type part of the race, single track, up and down, a few rocks and roots and stuff. So you're way out in these woods, and on the second loop, I'm on the trail, I'm going down this little hill, and all of a sudden there's a big tree in the path. Now, that doesn't sound very interesting, I'm sure. People see trees in the path all the time. The thing is, the tree was not there on the first lap. So it was so windy, this tree had fallen over during the race. And I don't mean a branch, I mean the whole tree. The roots and everything fell over. Well, maybe not the roots, but the trunk broke. And the whole tree fell over. The diameter of the trunk is probably 1 to 2 feet. So it's a substantial tree that came down during the race, which is just kind of interesting. You usually aren't present when something like that actually does happen. I did talk to a few people. No one said that they were there when this tree fell, although others did notice that had happened as well. But this tree was big enough that had it fallen on someone, that could easily have been killed or seriously injured. It was a pretty big tree. Luckily, the way it fell didn't require doing any climbing over it to get around. You could kind of run around the tree. But it was kind of interesting, and it reminded me of a day I had here in Ohio running in the woods a couple of years ago during another big, huge windstorm. It wasn't really raining, but it was extremely windy, like a tornado type. It wasn't a tornado, but it was like tornado type winds came through. And I was all alone running through the woods, and it was very interesting because I kept hearing branches cracking and falling, just a big crack. And then I'd hear the branch going through other branches and leaves and then hitting the ground all around me. Really kind of a surreal situation, kind of freaky. And I would say during that run over a course of about 45 minutes while this was happening, probably about 10 times I heard this big crack. And there was one that happened fairly close to me. I heard a crack and a fall, and I looked back, and about only 50 yards behind me, there was a branch on the trail that I just ran by. It was a small branch, but had it hit me, it could have been pretty serious. I mean, it was at least a few inches in diameter, so it wasn't nothing. And I'm sure it could have, knocked me out or something had it hit me. But it was just kind of interesting and surreal and freaky and creepy and eerie all happening around me. And, it kind of made me think about the whole idea of a forest, of the woods. You tend, if you're not in them very much, and you just go for your first hike and all the trails are fine, you might think the forest or the woods are always like that. And the more you get into trail running, you do see that trees actually do fall. I mean, this sounds elementary and stupid, but you don't think about that really. And so, the more you go out and run, the more you'll notice, oh, there's a tree here that wasn't here before, and eventually the Park Service or volunteers take care of it and clean it up. But it's the kind of, when I was a kid, I lived in the middle of a city, and although I was outdoors all the time, I wasn't really in the woods very much. We just didn't really have many. So I wasn't really aware of this kind of phenomenon that you think of the forest as being kind of static, other than the fact that leaves grow in the winter and they go away or leaves grow in the summer and go away in the winter. But anyway, you trail runners, I'm sure you all understand what I'm talking about there. It's just kind of interesting. The other thing that I wanted to mention, also in episode 17, I talked to Troy Shellhammer. He's the race director of the Backside Trail Marathon in Louisville, Kentucky. I interviewed him a little bit. We'll talk to him on mic a little bit. And he talked about the fact that he ran UROC the first couple of years. So that is on that episode. And it's kind of interesting. You might want to go back and listen to it toward the end of the episode where I talked to him, and he's talking about the first couple of editions of the UROC race and how it went for him. And that's kind of fun because that was just a couple of weeks before I was going to do UROC myself. So that was kind of neat. Okay, so let's get to this week's episode, which, as I said, it's titled Ashley and Tim Sweep UROC. So I will be talking to Ashley in a little bit. I interviewed her a couple of weeks ago, actually now, and you will get to listen to that. And you'll see what I mean by the fact that we sweep UROC. UROC is the Ultra Race of Champions. It's a pretty lofty title for a race, and let me give you just a quick overview of that. So this did begin in 2011, and it was those first 2 years that Troy Shellhammer did run them. And it started with this rather lofty idea, which was, let's have a big prize purse and try to get the best runners to come. So that's why it's called the Ultra Race of Champions. And they have had some very, very good runners come to this race. I'm not positive it's completely panned out in the sense that they've always gotten the very best runners to come, but they've always had really, really good runners show up. So look at the Ultra sign up and see some of the people who have run this race, and you will see some very big names in there. One other interesting thing is the race has moved around. So the first 2 years, I believe it was in Virginia, which is where I just ran it. I ran it 17 days ago, so I'm a little behind again. So it was a little over 2 weeks ago when I ran this race, and I did run it in Virginia. The first 2 years was in Virginia, but I don't think the exact same course. I was too lazy to look to see how close that course was to this course, but I think there were certainly some differences. At least I believe there were. After the first 2 years, it went to, I think, California for 2 years, near Auburn, near the Western States course somewhere. And then it went to Colorado for 2 years. And I may have Colorado and California mixed up, but it went to the West for 4 years. And then the last 2 years has come back to Virginia again. So last year was in Virginia, right where it is now, and this year in Virginia. So this was the 8th running of it. So it's moved around, which kind of implies next year it's going to be somewhere else, but I don't think so. I think they're going to leave it here again for next year. So I don't know if they've decided let's just stay at this one spot now and not move it anymore. I'm not sure why it moved originally, if that was the plan or if that's just something that happened. But I think they're going to keep it here at least for the next year, and maybe for the foreseeable future it's going to stay right where it is. Okay, so the race itself, there are three distances, a 100K, a 50K, and the 25K. The 100K is the marquee race. That's the one that the elites are really invited to come to try to race for cash prizes. And the 100K in this case was 63.5 miles, so 1.5 bonus miles. And it's called a point-to-point race, which technically it is because the start and the finish are not the same place. But don't get the idea that it's 63.5 miles along a line. It just means the start and finish are at different places. In fact, the start and finish are only like 10 or 15 miles apart. They're pretty near each other. It's a very kind of complicated course. I'll explain it in a bit. But you start at one spot and finish at a different spot. So it starts at a place called Camp Blue Ridge, and it finishes at a place called Skylark Nature Preserve and Lodge. They're both near Raffine, Virginia, Raphigne. Generally, you're in the Blue Ridge Mountains and the George Washington National Forest and the famous Blue Ridge Parkway, which is a road. They report that it's got 12,000 feet of gain and about 9,000 feet of loss, so you do go up more than you go down. And it's about 80% single track and double track trails, about 10% gravel, and about 10% on the Blue Ridge Parkway. You do run on the parkway itself. That all seems about right to me after having done it, from what I can tell. So the race was on Saturday, May 12th, which was about 17 days ago, as I said. And the race for me is about 8 hours away. I could have driven that in one day, and after the race I did drive back in one day, all in one day. But I decided to break it up just for fun into 2 days worth of driving. So on Thursday, I drove only 4 hours to Charleston, West Virginia. And I drove there, and I thought as long as I was doing that, or part of the reason I did that is I thought I'll go for a little run in Charleston, West Virginia along the river there. The river is the Kanawha River. I think that's how they say it. It looks like Kanawha to the rest of us, Kanawha, but I think they pronounce it the Kanawha River. Now I went for a little few mile run along the Kanawha River there. My hotel was on one side of the river, but I ran on the other side of the river. And if you run along this little spot that I ran on, which has a nice running path right next to the river, you go right by the state capitol building, the capital of West Virginia. Go right by it, and across the street from that is the University of Charleston. So got to see those. On the grounds of the state capitol building, there are 3 statues. I have pictures of those, and anything I talk about pictures of will be on the website at runsmith.net and all the notes. So anything I talk about, you can look for pictures on the notes. But one of the statues was, I think, one of these controversial statues we heard about in the last couple of years. It was Thomas Stonewall Jackson, a Confederate general. And I think this is one of these statues that people were protesting and all this. So if you want to see that statue, again, look at my notes. There's also a statue of Lincoln and another statue commemorating the Union soldiers, I believe, as well. So there were some other statues there. I got pictures of all those. Charleston seems to be kind of a cool-looking city geographically. When you're in it, it looks like it's just surrounded by hills. It's got to be a great place, I would think, for people to train. And I know I did actually a 50K there a couple of years ago called the Sasquatch 50K. And I remember I liked it. It was in the winter, but I didn't have my podcast at the time, so I didn't review it. But I remember I did enjoy it. But it looks really hilly all around that city, and probably in the city too, not really on the river where I ran. So I'm guessing people who live there get some really good hill training in, I would think. So that's what I did Thursday. On Friday, the one reason I did this is because I could really sleep in on Friday. You know, take my time and sleep in Friday instead of a long drive on Friday and having to get up early. So I was able to sleep in a little bit on Friday and only had a 4-hour drive. So from Charleston, West Virginia to Camp Blue Ridge in Virginia, you take I-64, which itself is a beautiful, beautiful drive. You go through the Appalachian Mountains and it's just gorgeous. Especially at this time of the year, the trees were green, just big mountains you're going through. Well, big for the Appalachians, right? Not big for the Rockies or something, but big for the East. Mountains that you're going through, just absolutely beautiful drive to go through. I will note something, though. If you are coming from this direction on 64 like this, or actually, I guess, really from any direction eventually, you will exit off of 64 to go up to Camp Blue Ridge. And that's about 20 miles, and there's pretty much no civilization for that 20 miles. In other words, there's no conveniences. So the last place you're going to see a convenience store, gas station, restaurants, stuff like that is on that exit right there. And then you're going to go about 20 miles. So if you need gas, convenience store, a last place to eat or something, you're going to need to do it there because maybe there's something up near Camp Blue Ridge, but I don't know what. Okay, maybe there's some little tiny stores of some sort, but it was the last really kind of major civilization type of place you would see. So actually, exit 64, you go through this little tiny town, and then you go up and up and up and up, kind of some windy, narrow roads, up to Camp Blue Ridge. And I checked in at Camp Blue Ridge. That's where I'll stay. That's where I stayed. And a little bit about Camp Blue Ridge is that it appears to be kind of a Christian camp, maybe for children or maybe for anyone. And it's got a number of things. It's pretty big. It has some cabins you could stay at. Some people stayed at cabins. It had a motel, which is what I stayed at, which is like it was 2 floors, 6 rooms in the bottom, 6 on top. I stayed in one of those. It has I saw like a lake, a little volleyball pit, horseshoe pit. It's got other things. I think it's got activities for kids and people to do there. So that's what this Camp Blue Ridge is. And I know I did not pay much for my room to stay here. The room itself, I had a double bed and there was also a bunk bed, but I was all by myself. So you could at least put 4 people in the room. It's just a room with a bathroom, no TV, but I don't care about that. It did have flannel sheets though. That was kind of nice. The cell service, that's the other thing that lasts. When you exit 64, that's maybe about one of the last times you're going to have cell service. There were a couple of spots. Actually, at the finish, I think maybe there was cell service at the finish. But Camp Blue Ridge is going to be the start of the race. So I stayed at the start of the race. No cell service there. You can buy Wi-Fi from them for $10. It didn't work great. It kind of worked at the office. It was supposed to work in my room, but didn't work in my room. But I don't care. But $10, you can get some Wi-Fi at Camp Blue Ridge. I just had to walk over to the office to use it. It's only like 50 yards, not a big deal. So I checked in at Camp Blue Ridge, and then I went to the packet pickup, which was only about a 15-minute drive away. So you drove kind of back the Blue Ridge Parkway and then went down the Blue Ridge Parkway a little bit to get to this lodge. It's kind of interesting. You turn off of the Blue Ridge Parkway, and you're on this narrow 1-lane, winding kind of gravel road for about a half a mile, and there's only a couple of places you can kind of turn off. So you're praying you don't meet someone head on. Because if you do, someone's got to back up on this narrow, winding, 1-lane road with kind of a cliff on one side. And so I was like, man, I just hope I don't run into, come up to someone head on. But luckily I never did the whole weekend. So that was good. I'm sure it had to have happened to someone. So just let it be known you will have that issue to deal with. So that's how you get to the Skylark Nature Preserve. You turn off Blue Ridge Highway, you go down this little funky little road to this little intersection of 2 roads, kind of. One's really a driveway that goes up to the lodge. Okay, the lodge just looks like a house. It just looks like someone's house is all it looks like. We never went in it or anything. So you park there at this little intersection, which is going to be part of the course in the end. And everyone parked there in this grassy area. Then you had to walk up. I mean like 250 yards, very, very steep walk. And this was going to be the last 250 yards of the race, by the way. So you walk up and up and up, kind of through the guy's yard or this lodge's yard, and up even farther to the finish. And that's where the packet pickup was, Skylark. It was Francesca Conti, one of the co-race directors herself, who did the packet pickup. And at the packet pickup, let's see, we got a shirt. So I'm holding it up to the camera. So if people don't know, I do put this on YouTube. I just taken a video of me doing the podcast, and then I put it up on YouTube a few days after the podcast comes out, or maybe a week after. And that way, if you know someone who doesn't do podcasts, you can tell them, look at the YouTube video. So we got a shirt here. I'll put a picture of this on the website too, but holding it up to the camera. It's a gray shirt. It says UROC Ultra Race of Champions on it, like so. And we also got these S-Fuel bars. I suppose S-Fuel was one of the sponsors. There's like little bars to eat. S-Fuel. So we got 4 different flavors of S-Fuels. I guess I've heard of that before, but not really familiar with them. I haven't eaten them yet. Got our bib. Our bib is pretty cool looking. It says it's got your name on it. Even says M for male. I'm M81 was my number, so they know I'm a guy. And it says 100K on it. At the very bottom is the elevation chart, which you can't see really well, but you can kind of see it. And it's upside down, so when you're looking at it, when you have it pinned to you and you look at it, it's right side up, I guess. So that's what we got at the packet pickup. At 4:30, well, I should say the finish itself is really cool looking, very professional looking. They have a big finisher chute with big flags and a big arch that you go under with a clock like in the arch. They were setting up an actual podium, 5 deep, real podium for the finishers. So it's kind of really cool with a big blow-up arch over that. So it's a pretty neat looking finish. And it's at the very top of this steep hill, kind of this hill that goes down everywhere from it. You have to kind of see it. But it was kind of a real cool looking finish. I can see why they liked having it finish up there. At 4:30, they did a course talk with Francesca and the other race director, James Gill. And they went over the course in quite a bit of detail, a little too much to remember, but it was useful. There were some things that stuck in my mind, so it was pretty helpful. And I'll mention some more of those things later. Then, after the course, they also talked about how it's going to be marked and a few other little things, logistical things as well. After that, they announced many of the elites that were going to be there, or at least, I guess you want to call them elites, who it looked like were going to be maybe the top 10 male and female, roughly. They announced all them and had them come up. And after that, they had all the 100K runners come up, and they took a big picture of all the 100K runners. So that was kind of cool, getting your picture taken there. Made you feel kind of special. So that was it. That was the packet pickup. And the little course talk was pretty useful. After that, at some point I realized I had never thought about my dinner, what I was going to do for dinner. I had nothing. Some people were smart enough, like at the motel, to bring something to grill or to eat. I didn't, so I had to go all the way back down. I mean, it's only 20 miles, but it's kind of winding road. You're not going real fast. I had to go all the way back down to 64 again to get something to eat. And all they had there was like Wendy's and Burger King or whatever. But they did have a truck stop called the Iron Skillet. So I thought, I'll go in there. And all I got was spaghetti and garlic bread, which was the exact same thing I had the night before in Charleston. But the one interesting thing by the way, the Iron Skillet was fine, good place to eat. But one thing that happened there was I'm in line, and I get to the front of the line, and the lady says, "Do you get the senior citizens discount?" And I just laughed. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I'm just laughing. I'm kind of looking around at other people like, what's this crazy lady saying, And I go, "I'm only 56. And she goes, "You qualify." So I qualified for the senior citizens discount. So the two bad things about that is, number one, I look like I qualify for the senior citizens discount, evidently. And number two, I do qualify for the senior citizens discount. It was kind of funny because it saved like 40 cents. But anyway, that was all rather depressing. So after that sad encounter, I had to drive all the way back up to Camp Blue Ridge to get ready. So I was actually in bed by about 9 p.m., which is really quite early for me. Kind of the advantage of not having Wi-Fi. I wasn't playing on my phone. Kind of recommend that, actually. Normally I might be up monkeying around on my phone a little bit longer, but even so, it's hard for me to get to bed that early. I actually fell asleep fairly quickly. This was, I don't know how or why, maybe kind of just out in the middle of nowhere feeling something about it. Because quite often the night before a race, I'm up till 11 or later or something. No matter what time I have to get up. Doesn't matter if I have to get up at 3. I'm just often up late. But I got to bed pretty early, so this was kind of a good sign right here. Now, one thing that did happen in the middle of the night is that I smashed my toe. So the living room or the bedroom was carpet, and the bathroom was like stone floor. But the intersection of the two was a very jagged kind of stone. Like they hadn't finished this very well. And it was like a little step up. And so I went to the bathroom in the middle of the night, bang, smashed my toe. And not the big toe on my right foot, but the second toe. Really, really hurt, And I thought, I'm sure it's fine, And I went back to sleep. And I got up in the morning and there was a blood blister on it. And I thought, my goodness, the race hasn't begun. And I've got a blood blister on my freaking toe. And I actually thought about popping it, but it wasn't really a bubble. So I thought, I guess it's okay. But it didn't seem like a good sign to start the race with a blood blister. But I put my Injinjis on and my Hoka Speed Goats and Thankfully, it was fine. My feet were fine the whole race. Amazingly, they were fine the whole race. So at 4 a.m., I got up at 3:15 a.m. 3:15. At 4 a.m., I got in my car and I drove to the finish. That 15-minute drive to the finish at Skylark, because that's where I was going to leave my car, because there they had a shuttle. So parked at the same place I did the day before. You get on a shuttle and you come back to Camp Blue Ridge. So they had shuttles like every 15 minutes. You had to sign up for the shuttle. Then they assigned you a time. So I got the 4:30 shuttle. I think some people had to be at the shuttle by 4 a.m. and some were as late as maybe 5 or something. So I was in the middle. So I got there, got on the shuttle, and they took us back. And they took us back literally to my door. Okay? Here is one place where it would have been nice to have somebody with me. Because if I had someone with me who could have picked me up at the finish, I could have slept till 5. Another hour and 45 minutes. I could have slept, because you get up at 5 and you get ready and you walk outside the door and there's the race. That's it. The race started, I would say, 75 yards from the door of my motel. 75 yards. So I'm telling all of you, this is the place to stay, especially if you have some people with you, because you can get up at 5. I got up at 3:15. And what about the people who had to be at the shuttle at 4? They even had to get up even earlier. So this is the place to be. When you get back to Camp Blue Ridge, there is a big room for everyone to go into at the office. Although I went into my room actually for a little bit, my own room. And then I went into the big room with everyone. I got some pictures with a few people, chit-chatted. Chit-chatted a little. So that's kind of nice. So if the weather's bad, you do have a place to go inside at the start of the race with bathrooms in there. But again, if you have a motel right there, one of those motel rooms, you got it made. Especially if you, again, like I said, if you don't have to take the shuttle, it's really, really great. So the race started at 6 a.m. and it was, like I said, it was nice and warm. All I had on was just a regular T-shirt, my Timothy Olsen Ultimate Direction vest with 2 bottles in the front, my Hoka Speed Goats, my Injinjis, and I was ready to go. Some gels, and that's all I needed. I was all ready, and we started at 6 a.m., right on the nose. The 100K and the 50K all started together. The 25K didn't start till, I think, 9 a.m., and they started where we would finish. They started at Skylark, and they did a loop that included something towards the end of the race, and they finished at Skylark. But the 100K and 50K all started together. Maybe there's 200 of us. If there were that many, I'm not sure. I know 89 started the 100K. 89. Probably, maybe even more did the 50K. Okay, let me give you a rough course outline. Imagine a Y, the letter Y, a capital Y, and you start at the very bottom. All right? You start at the bottom. We're all going to run up vertical up the Y. And we only go about 3 miles, and the 50K people are going to go right. We're going to go left. Okay? So the 50K people are going to go right and do their thing. We go left, and we just do an out and back. We go about 14 miles out, 14 miles back. So by the time we get back to that intersection of the Y, we've done about 30 miles. We're almost halfway done. We've done basically a 50K. And then we will do what the 50K people did to finish the race. All right? So the left side of the Y is very easy. You just run up the stem to the intersection, do an out and back. You're around mile 30-ish. And then you're going to go do the right side of the Y. This is more complicated. You run a little connector back to Skylark. You actually run to Skylark almost right to the finish, literally within about 75 yards of the finish. You run this little connector to the finish. From there, you're basically going to do a lollipop. All right, so you're on the right side of the Y here. You do a little run to where the finish is, but you're not finished. Then you're going to do a lollipop. You're going to go out, do a big circle, and come back. I will say, though, on the big circle of the big lollipop is a baby lollipop. All right, so you go to the right, run to the finish, do a big lollipop, but somewhere on the big circle of the big lollipop, you'll get off it and do a baby lollipop and get back on it. So it's a little complicated, a little funny, but that's the general outline of the course. All right, so we are going, all right, at 6 a.m. We're all running, nice and warm, and that's going to be an issue, actually. Too warm. As you all know, we had quite a cool spring here. I think at least in the Midwest and the East, had a very cool spring. Nobody was heat acclimated. This is going to end up being an issue for a lot of people, I think. So let's just kind of go over my race in a little bit more detail. So I run up the 3 miles or so. I see the 50K people go right, and we go left. You run a little bit more, and you get on the Blue Ridge Parkway. I really enjoyed running on the Blue Ridge Parkway. Some people may say, oh, I don't like it, it's road, but you weren't on it that much. So, like a couple of miles at a shot at most. But it was nice, and it was very nice, too, because just easy to run compared to everything else. At this point, we're just kind of going uphill. So you go up the Blue Ridge Parkway, and you come off it, literally a few feet off it, I think, and you're at about mile 7, and that's the first aid station. It's called the North Whetstone, because you're going to go on the Whetstone Ridge. This aid station, this first one, is very important at mile 7, extremely important. If you're doing this race, this is a very important aid station, because you're not going to hit another one for 11 miles. So at this aid station, and it took me an hour and a half to get here, so now it's 7:30 in the morning, but I put sunscreen on, I put bug spray on, I filled my water bottles, and I got an extra water bottle, one that goes around my waist. So I had 3 water bottles, which I'm going to tell you is not enough. I had a handheld water bottle in my drop bag there. You can have a drop bag. I should have taken it. Mistake. I did not take it. Because it's only 7:30 in the morning. It still seems kind of okay. So I would take 4 bottles if you have 4 bottles, unless you're a really fast runner. If you're not a fast runner, you're like me, you should have 4 bottles. And it's warm out, especially if it's warm out. I also, loaded up on gels, because the next aid station, 11 miles, you can have a drop bag, but I actually didn't. But you could. But in any case, make sure you have enough gels and all that stuff with you. Have a lot. Put on sunscreen. Put everything on. So from that point, you're going to go from North Whetstone, aid station 1, to South Whetstone, aid station 2, 11 miles with no aid station. And this is not an easy section. Some of it's fine. Some of it's nice single track or grass, but there's a lot of areas where it's rocky. And generally, you're going downhill for this section, but it didn't really feel like it. It felt pretty flat in the sense that you weren't going generally up or down, but you had all these little ups and downs within it. Lots of little hills, little sharp hills that you had within it. And one fun thing is partway through that, you're going to start seeing people coming back. So I got to see all the race leaders coming back at me. I'm probably at mile 12, and they're at like mile 20 already. They're so far ahead of me. But I was seeing the first place woman, Amanda Basham, who ended up winning. She's unbelievable. She's not of this world. I can tell you that right now. The first couple of guys, I think Tyler Sigel, who ended up winning, Jeffrey Colt were up front. Anthony Kunkel was up front. Michael Wardian was up front. And, of course, some of the other leaders were up front as well. And they're just flying. I wish I could eloquently communicate what I think of what they can do. It's just unreal. It's unearthly how they can run on rocks and everything at such a speed. Downhill, no matter what, they're just flying. I cannot even comprehend how a human being can do it. I don't know how an animal does it, but I certainly don't understand how a human being does it. But it's magical to watch. So, of course, you get to see all the people coming back at you, but it is a tough section. There was nothing easy about that section. And that's pretty early in the race to have that. So it took me 3 hours to do that 11 miles, which doesn't sound, very fast, but it just was slow going. There's a lot of rocks and such to go there. So at aid station 2, which is South Whetstone, I filled up all my bottles and just got going again. I had no drop bag there, so I drank as much as I could right there, filled up, and got going. And actually, at this point, I'm already way towards the back. I think, I really doubt there were 9 people behind me. Of the 89 who started, I don't feel like when I left aid station 2 and I'm going back, I don't feel like I passed more than 9 people coming towards me. I was way towards the back of the race already at this point. So the aid station themselves, by the way, they had Gatorade and they had this S Fuel in powder form, in barrels to drink, and they also had water. I didn't really care if I got Gatorade or the S Fuel. I just, whatever. Just give me whatever. Give me one of them. I don't care. I just took whatever. But I'll get back to something about this aid station later. But anyway, again, fill up, drink up as much as you can, because now it's really going to start getting warm. So I'm already at 4.5 hours. So I'm at 10:30 or so, and I'm going to head back. Now the warmth is really going to start to hit, and you're pretty exposed in a lot of this 11-mile section. So I headed back to aid station 1, which I'm going to call aid station 3, North Whetstone again. And I actually did not have enough water. My 3 water bottles did not do it. Once I got to the point where I was down to, a half a water bottle total, I started taking such tiny sips that I kind of made it all last. I think I took my last sip like 20 minutes before I finally hit the third aid station, North Whetstone again, but I did not have enough. I could have been gulping way more water. And when I got done, my mouth was like cotton. It was just way too little water for me. So I really wish I had had that 4th water bottle. That 4 miles, 11 miles took me 4 hours. I cannot believe it took me 4 hours. It did not seem like 4 hours. But it was more uphill. So as you go to aid station 2, out to the first 11 miles, like I said, it mostly seems like you're steady elevation, but there is about the last 2 miles you do go downhill to aid station 2. Then you turn around, you have to go uphill for a couple miles. So that's kind of slow going uphill. And then it seems like the hills going back were steeper going up. So I was using my hands sometimes to go up the hills. They were that steep or rocky. So there weren't simple hills to go up. Not a whole lot of using my hands, but a little bit here and there. So it was generally probably more uphill going back. But in any case, it took me 4 hours to go 11 miles to go back. It didn't feel like 4 hours. I was surprised when I looked back at my data that it was 4 hours. I guess I knew it when I got back. So it's like 8.5 hours total I've been out there running already. And I had done about 30 miles, so almost halfway done in 8.5 hours. But the cutoff is 19.5 hours, which is going to be 1:30 in the morning. But I'm not exactly flying, that's for sure. But I do think a lot of people dropped during this section, or they dropped when they got back here. I don't know that for a fact, but I think some people did. I did pass a few people who were just not looking good at all on that section going back. When I got back there, I drank and drank and drank and drank, and I could get rid of that 3rd water bottle, because from here on out, you're not going to have a big issue with aid stations being far apart. I will make one important mention about this aid station, North Whetstone, which you hit twice, aid station 1 and aid station 3. That is the only place I saw an actual building with a bathroom in it. So if that's what you like, use it. You do have to go about 25, 50 yards off the wrong direction to go into it, but I actually did use it. I think when I got back, I don't forget which time I used it. I think when I got back, I did use it. I had to go. You know what I mean? I had to go, so I did use it. And while I was using it, I pulled my phone out, and I think there was cell service there. So I texted my wife and daughter, and I said, "Hey, I'm still moving. I'm almost halfway, 8 hours and 30 minutes, So that was a good I took some time there. Both times I took a little time there to make sure I just, like I said, the first time I put sunscreen on, I might have put some more on again when I got back, because now it's 2 in the afternoon or something. When I get back there, it's 2:30 in the afternoon when I got back there. So I probably put on more bug spray, and I got more gels, and I'm starting to use blocks now. Usually I use gels the first part of a long race, and then I switch over to like blocks and sport beans later in a long race, especially if it's warm. Gels are a little bit harder to get down, so I think I started slowly switching over to blocks and sport bean type things. It's a little easier to put down. But I made sure I was really, well hydrated and everything before I took off. But there's not going to be a big issue anymore with aid stations far apart. But this, I guess my point is, take these 22 miles super, super, super seriously. Super seriously, hydration-wise and everything. Be prepared. I think it knocked people out. They just weren't ready for it. I wasn't either. I just got lucky. And regarding that bathroom, I only recall, and this could be just my bad memory, seeing one more porta potty the whole rest of the race. And that's coming up. It's like near the next aid station. So the last 30 miles of the race, I did not see a porta potty for 30 miles. Now, it's quite possible there was one, and my mind cannot remember it. You know, I could have looked right at one and just didn't need it, because I'm a guy. I don't need to go in there and pee. All right, so it's just possible I missed it, but I don't recall another one. So there's only going to be one more, and it's kind of near the finish, which you're going to go by it. But that's the only one I remember seeing. Again, I apologize to the race directors if there were more, but there's plenty of places to pee. That's not a problem. But I guess the point is, if you're going to need to go number 2, or you think you might, or it's any chance, you better bring something to be able to do it out in the woods. Because that's my point. Or double check on porta potties. Maybe there's more than I thought. Okay, so anyway, from aid station 2, I'm about mile 30, 8.5 hours into the race. From here, we're going to retrace on the Blue Ridge Parkway back to the split, back to where the 50K people went to the right, and then we get to do what they did. So from aid station 2 to that split was nice. It was a Blue Ridge Parkway downhill, down a gravel road to it, even down a little bit more after that split. But then you start going uphill. And the good thing is it's gravel road. It was really steep. I couldn't run it. But at least it was gravel. It wasn't, I didn't have to worry about my footing or anything. It just easy, just grind. That's all you have to do is grind. So you grind it up a hill. Then you turn onto this grass section. You're going up and up and up and up. It just seemed like forever. You're going up. And you go right by the finish. Like I said, it's amazing. You look up. It's like 75 yards above you is the finish. You see the flags, you see the arch, you see everything. And then you just swerve to the right and go kind of around it. It's pretty funny. So you're at like mile 34 at this point, and you say, hello, finish, there you are. And you just kind of go around it like, oh, you're not really there. And you go by right where your car is. And that's where the other porta potty is, by the way, right there that I remember. And I have to wonder how many people dropped at this point. It's like, forget this, because you got about another 30 miles to go. And I just wonder if people thought, there's my car. It's right there. I didn't even let myself look at the car. I'm like, car, you are not there. It doesn't exist, okay? I just went by it as fast as I could. So you go down a little bit more, and there's the next aid station, this pond, kind of at the bottom of this area you've been going down now. You kind of went up to the finish, and now you go back down to this pond, aid station there. Then you go back up again, because you're going to make your way up this big grassy area. First a little bit of road, and then this big grassy area up to Blue Ridge Parkway again, a different part of the Blue Ridge Parkway. So as I'm going up this grassy area, I'm at like mile 35 or something maybe. Tyler Sigel, the winner, comes flying by me the other direction. He's got like a half a mile to go. So you can imagine, I've got 30 miles to go or so. Here he is flying by me, and I'm like, I suppose I could have been demoralized or something, but I just thought it was cool. I was like, yeah, go, man, you're the leader. At least I said, I think you're the leader, because I didn't know for sure. I'm like, I think you're the leader. And I think he had poles, and he puts his poles up in the air, and he just gave this big, yeah, scream. It was pretty awesome. But here he is. He's going to be done in like 10 minutes. I'm going to be done in like 10 more hours. Literally 10 more hours to go. But it was still kind of neat. So I'm just walking up the hill and he's flying down. So after I saw him, you get on the Blue Ridge Parkway. It's still kind of uphillish a little. It's flattish. A little of both. And some of the other leaders came by. So I think Jeffrey Colt, who came in second, came by. And then Amanda Basham, third overall. Unbelievable. She came by. Someone else, Michael Wardian, came by. I saw all these people on the road, all finishing their race. So that was really neat to see them come by. You go on the road a little bit, then you take a left and you go up this big rutted dirt road, the type of thing my Honda Civic would not really want to go up. But this kind of rutted dirt, very steep. You had to walk up that hill there to Bald Mountain Aid Station. That's at mile 39. I'm at mile 39 at this point. Almost 11 hours. Got about 40, or I've got about 25 miles to go, and I've got about 9 hours to do it, which sounds quite doable, doesn't it? If you think about it that way. Maybe 8.5 hours to do it. So we're at this Bald Mountain. Now we're going to do the big loop, and we're going to come back to Bald Mountain and then retrace our steps to the finish. So we have a big loop to do, and on that big loop is going to be another lollipop, like I said. This big loop we do and the little lollipop, a lot of tough running. Kind of like Whetstone again, as far as just the general difficulty of running. After Bald Mountain is only 2.1 miles to the next aid station 6, which was called Slacks Overlook. Only 2.1 miles, but it took me like 45 minutes because there were so many rocks, and it was even downhill. But I can only call them rock gardens, just rocks and rocks. And I'm talking not little rocks you can run on, boulders, like bowling ball sized boulders. You're trying to run over these things. It's like, forget it. I'm just walking. Again, I suppose these crazy elites had to have been running on those things, but I don't know how. And that was tough. You get the Slacks Overlook. Then we did like a bubble that came back around to Slacks Overlook again. That's part of that extra lollipop. And that was again tough. From there, you went kind of down, 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 and then back up, 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 up to Slacks Overlook again. You did this circular little bubble to get back to Slacks Overlook. So that's your aid station 6 and your aid station 7. The Slacks Overlook, none of that was very easy. It wasn't the worst part. I was running some of it, but not coming back up it was, fairly slow. At this point, I'm at about mile 45 or so. So I've got about 20 miles to go, a little less than 20 miles. And I'm at about 13 hours. So again, it seems like I'm going to be okay, right? 20 miles and I've got 6.5 hours. But honestly, at this point, I was about 50 minutes ahead of the cutoff, which I guess you can say sounds pretty good, but you ultra runners know how easily you can lose 50 minutes. So I wasn't feeling all that great about it. I wasn't feeling not confident. I was just kind of like feeling, okay, just let's go. That's where I had my other drop bag. I only had 2 drop bags because both the places I picked, you hit twice. So essentially I had 4 spots I hit my drop bags. You could have it at a couple other places, but this is the only places I had them. So again, I loaded up on blocks, stuff like that I needed. Anything special that I had. I put on more bug spray. There's a lot of places where you're rubbing against vegetation. That always kind of bugs me, especially out east. I always think I'm going to get ticks all over me. So I just put bug spray all over my legs, and my arms. I grabbed my headlamp at this point because it's going to be getting close to being evening. See, 13 hours. That means it's about 7 p.m. Okay, so I knew I was going to need my headlamp. So again, I'm about 50 minutes ahead of the cutoff at this point. And I feel like there's something else. I can't remember. But anyway, I also grabbed my knuckle lights. So I have a headlamp and knuckle lights. If you don't know what knuckle lights are, Google them. They're really nice. You put them on your hands, and you don't have to carry them. They just stick to they wrap around your knuckles. And you can open up your hands and everything. They don't fall off. I like them because if your headlamp goes out, you still have 2 other lights. And you can use them in conjunction with your headlamp, and just gives you a wider view. So I actually very much like them. They're just nothing. Again, you don't even have to carry them. They're just stuck to your hands. They're really useful. Just as I was leaving this aid station, someone was coming in. I'm pretty sure it was Ashley, who is the one I'm going to be interviewing. I'm pretty sure it was Ashley. So the next section is going to be the second longest section, 7.7 miles along what's kind of called the Torrey Ridge to aid station 8, which is going to be the second to last one. This is the second longest stretch of the day. And this part here is where things started going less well. Okay. It started off really great. There's like this pine needle trail that was flat. And I'm like, wow, this is awesome. Maybe that was 2 miles of it. The next 5 or 6 you just descended, and it was, again, like the rock garden business, just rocks and rocks. Again, big rocks, the types you cannot run over unless you're a better person than I am. And my quads are pretty shot from the downhills. I've had it worse, but they were hurting. I'm fighting cramping coming on. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but that's my nemesis, is cramping. I can feel it wanting to happen. The footing is horrible. So I'm starting to get into a bit of a negative headspace because I'm feeling like I'm going to lose this 50 minutes right here and maybe time out at the next aid station. As I was walking the rocks, I hear kind of a whoo behind me, and it's Ashley. And she's walking with her poles, and she's all excited, kind of, and I'm just kind of, I'm like, ugh. And anyway, she just goes flying by me like, no, she's walking, but I'm going so slow, and I'm just kind of droopy shouldered and whining to myself and everything. She goes by me, and I'm not exactly sure why, but I just tried to stay up with her. And I did. I managed to stay up with her, and I'll say right now, I doubt I would have finished this race if it were not for Ashley. I just hung on to her and walked behind her for about 2 straight hours through this section. And she could just keep up a stronger pace than I could, especially if you start going down. Uphill, I could keep up with her pretty well. Downhill, she would just leave me. I'm like, bye. But at least I would catch up to her again the next time it got kind of flat or uphill. So I just hung on to her as best I could during this whole section. We were just, talking to each other the whole way, kind of joking, and I was probably negative, but I hope I didn't drag her down too much because I kind of feel like I was. But she was kind of lifting me up, and we started just joking about how this descent was never going to end. It's just constant downhill with these rocks, and we're like, no way, we can't do anything. We can't get anything going. So we're both kind of wondering, are we going to, make it to this next cutoff? Finally, we get to like this rutted dirt road, and I'm like, okay, let's run. So I run because it's finally a spot you could actually run. It was a level, but we only went like a half a mile, and there was the next aid station. Turns out we made it by about 25 minutes. So we actually only lost 25 minutes in that section. We were 50 minutes ahead at aid station 7. We were now 25 minutes ahead of the cutoff. So now we're still getting pretty darn nervous here, but at least we made it, I guess. That section, that 7.7 mile section, took about 3 hours. It felt like it took longer. It felt like it took longer than that 4 hours on Whetstone to me. But it took about 3 hours to do, again, which doesn't sound very impressive, does it? 7.7 miles in 3 hours? Not very good. At this point, Ashley had a pacer, and I was just getting so nervous. I kind of thought maybe we were just going to go the whole thing together, but I just got nervous, and she kind of sat for a second to take in some noodles, and I just took off. So I'm like, okay, Ashley, get going, when you're ready or whatever. And I just took off without her. So I started going because we had about the next section was going to be like 6.4 miles. And we had, I was only 25 minutes ahead of cutoff, and I didn't know what was coming. Oh, I did know what was coming because this is what they said at the race meeting. They said toward the end of the race, you'll have a section where you go through about 6 creeks. We hadn't hit that yet. And they told us about the number one hardest, biggest, most major climb, which we had not hit yet, which is going to be a mile climb with 1,000 feet of elevation in this climb. We had not hit that yet. So now you can see why I'm so nervous. 25 minutes off the cutoff, and I've got to go through that stuff. So it started out okay, though. First, we were going uphill, but it was like a gravel road. So, again, the footing was fine. And I had pretty good hiking power still, especially I had good uphill hiking power, okay? And I'm like, okay, this is all right. I can't really run this, but I can hike it pretty well. And then we get into this grassy area. Then we went over this weird concrete thing, which I did not understand what it was. But Ashley said it was a dam. But I couldn't tell with my limited light what the heck it was. It was really weird. I have a picture of that too. And we went over that, and then we get on a single track. So now I'm starting to get nervous again because I'm thinking, I love single track, but it's going to slow me down. It wasn't as bad as the previous 20 miles. It wasn't rocky like that, but still, it's dark, completely dark. I'm tired, having a hard time lifting my legs. So any little rocks and roots are starting to become a little more problematic. On top of this is when we hit all these creek crossings. So basically, I think we were kind of running along a creek, and kind of crossing over the creek a bunch of times, which actually was kind of nice going through the creek. I thought it felt good, but it was just slow. You have to go down the bank, go through the creek really slow because it's all rocks underneath it, and go up the other side. Sometimes it's muddy and slippery, and you're grabbing onto things and even trying to figure out what's the best spot to go up and stuff like that. So it was just slow going through all these creeks, and the last thing I wanted to do was slow down. I at least wanted to have a strong hike going. So I was just doing the best I could, hiking as fast as I could, running when I could run, and wondering when this big hill's going to come. And you know how it is. If you can't see, you're going up, and you're like, is this the hill? Is this the hill? Is this the hill? And finally, I realized I was on the hill. And it was just a bunch of switchbacks going up and up and up. And even though he had said 1 mile and 1,000 feet, at this point, I didn't have a feel for when this was going to end. So I'm just hands on my knees, pushing as hard as I could, up and up and up and up. And I mean, I'm just grinding up this hill. It was really quite something going up this hill. I just didn't know when it was going to end. But eventually kind of hit a switchback and then another switchback. And I noticed it had been a while for a switchback. And I thought maybe we're done with the switchbacks. And very slowly it started to level out. And I'm like, I think that's it. And then it emptied out onto like this road, this dirt road, which the Mount Baldy aid station's on a dirt road. So I thought, okay, I must be close. But I don't know how close. Am I still 2 miles? Am I half a mile or whatever? I didn't really know. My watch isn't that accurate to tell me. So I'm running, and I didn't even want to look at the watch anyway. I didn't want to know how close I was to cutoff. And I made it. Luckily, it was only about a half a mile on that dirt road. I get there, and I made the cutoff by 10 or 15 minutes, maybe only 10 minutes. I just made it. And that was a real hallelujah moment. It's like, oh, my goodness, I made it, you know. I mean, I was ecstatic. I was absolutely ecstatic to have made it. And I'll mention that actually looking back at my data, from even before the last aid station up to this one at Mount Baldy, is that what it's called, Mount Baldy, or Mount Bald, whatever, that was a 6.7 mile stretch that was almost all uphill. And we went about 1,700 feet up in 6.7 miles. So the last 6.7 miles to get here was all uphill. Remember, from Slack's Overlook down to the last aid station, that was all downhill. But it was all rocks, so we couldn't make up any time. We lost time going downhill because it was all rocks. And then we had to go back uphill for 6.7 miles roughly, which wasn't as bad footing-wise, but it was uphill. Anyway, we made it. So pretty darn excited to make it. It was about hour 18. I'm at mile 59 here. This is the last aid station. I got about 4.5 miles to go, and I have an hour and a half to get there. And I knew this was going to be relatively easy because I'm retracing back. So thankfully, I know it's mostly downhill and technically extremely easy. So I was pretty confident that unless something really went bad, which for me means cramping, I should make it. As a note, as I got up there, and I was pretty quick. I just filled up my bottles and got what I needed. And then I got out of there, but I was only there for 3 or 4 minutes. A guy came behind me. His name's Jason McDaniel, I think. Came up next. I'm like, uh-oh, because that means he passed Ashley. Had to have, because he wasn't with us. I didn't pass him, and he wasn't with us. And so I don't know if I said something or who said something, but he said, and I don't remember his exact words, and it may not have been as negative as this, but I interpreted them as Ashley's done. Like she was sitting, she wasn't going to make it. I don't remember exactly what he said, but maybe he just said, oh, I passed her and she was slowing down. I don't know exactly, but I felt like he said something like, oh, I don't think she's going to make it. She stopped. You know, something like that. Like, you know, she's just going nowhere. But I don't remember, but I took it like she's not going to make it. So I'm like, oh, man, I was just so bummed, but I'll confess I was just so selfish that it was like, I need to put that out of my mind and go. So I did. I just kind of went and went down that rutted dirt road. We had come up to Bald Mountain, and I ran most of that, even though it was not kind of rutted and you had to watch, but I was a little bit nervous I was going to cramp, and I didn't want to cramp at the end. Then you got back on the Blue Ridge Parkway, running that for a mile or two or so. It was kind of flat, slightly uphill, but I still should have been able to run it, but I was just getting nervous with the cramping, so I walked way more than I should have. I had the energy and the leg strength. I just was nervous about cramping because that can stop me in my tracks. So I did too much walking there, but I was walking at a good pace. Then you turn off back to the grass. At that point, it was like 18:45 on my watch. And I knew I was within like a mile or so. A tough mile as far as you're going to go down to that pond again. And then you got a big, gigantic uphill to get to the finish. But I knew it was all smooth. It wasn't going to be a big problem. I had 45 minutes to do maybe a mile and a half or something like this. Even if it was 2 miles, I thought, I'm going to make it. By the way, at 18:50 on my watch, the watch died. But I did have another watch that had time of day, so I knew I had till 1:30 in the morning. So I still knew where I was at, but I was too slow for my watch. So anyway, you go down the grass part, the part where Tyler Sigel passed me. I go down to the pond, and you're at the bottom, where there was an aid station during the race, but there's no aid station at this point because we're too close to the finish. And then it's just up. You go up this gravel road, and it kind of wind up to where your car is, and then very steep up the driveway. And I mean, I'm hands on knees steep, okay, up to the driveway. And a funny thing happened there. As I'm going up, someone talks to me, and I can't remember the exact words. I'm tired and all that, but somehow the word Ashley came up out of his mouth or something. It could have been her husband. I'm not exactly sure who it was. Quite possibly it was her husband, and said something about Ashley. So maybe he had seen us together, because like, why would someone be asking me about Ashley? And I said back to this person, I said, oh, she's not going to make it. She didn't make the last aid station. I mean, I said it like totally matter-of-factly. And he says, no, she made it. She's behind you. She's like 5 minutes behind you. And I'm just like, yes. I was so happy. I'm like, oh my goodness, here I'm going to make it. And I know she's going to make it. So then I had just a little bit more to go up to like where the lodge is itself, and then the grass, the last 20, 30 yards up this steep grass slope. And I made it. 19 hours, 14 minutes, flat. I made it by 16 minutes. Jason McDaniel actually had passed me on the road, I believe. He finished like 10 minutes ahead of me or something. And Ashley came in only 4 minutes behind me. So whatever she did at that last aid station, which we'll find out, I think she actually did the last part faster than I did. I think she, like I said, I wasn't running very much. I think she was probably running. So anyway, she did make it in like 1918. So that's who I'm going to interview here. In a few minutes, you'll hear that. But a pretty exciting finish, I think, for all of us people. There was a couple other ladies there also had finished within, 40 minutes of the cutoff. So James Gill was there, and Francesca. I got my picture taken with Ashley, with James Gill. I was pretty excited. Got my buckle, a very cool buckle. Let's see, where be the buckle? There's the buckle. Sorry, I'm hitting things. Putting the buckle up to the camera. Beautiful little buckle there. It says UROC since 2011. 100 kilometers. At the top it says World Ultra Running Championship. That makes me feel really special, right? Like I'm a champion. And it also says Bad to the Bone. That's the name of that little race company, Bad to the Bone. So pretty darn excited to get to the finish. 1:14 in the morning. Obviously just completely elated, and just doubly elated to see Ashley come in. The person, the angel who pulled me through the darkest part came in, right behind me. So, and we were the last two. So we swept UROC. Ashley and Tim swept UROC. So there you go. Some data on the race. 18 people didn't start the 100K. I'm sure, I know one at least, overheard a guy talking, said he dropped to the 50K at Packet Pickup. I don't know how many else dropped to 50K. or who just didn't show up. 89 started, 45 dropped. So just over a 50% drop rate. I was 43rd of 44 finishers. Ashley was 44, but we were just a couple of minutes apart. So like I said, we swept the race. But, 45 people dropped. So Ashley and I have to keep that in mind when we, think of that, how we did. We were still, in a sense, in the top 50%. Let's do the podium here. I'll tell you some cash prizes for the women. It was Amanda Basham of Utah. 10 hours, 40 minutes, 55 seconds. She got $5,000 for that. So that is the winner's prize for this, $5,000. That's a nice little payday for her. Amanda, she is unbelievable. She won it last year and won it this year. It was by far the performance of the day. It was Amanda Basham. Absolutely the performance of the day, hands down. Nobody will argue with me about that. Sarah Keyes was next of New York, 11:56. So you can see Sarah Keyes is a fantastic runner. She was an hour and 16 minutes behind Amanda. I'll give you some idea right there. Samantha Creeth of New York was third. Sarah Keyes got $2,000. Samantha Creeth of New York, 12:37. She got $1,500. Sheila Viebert, I think, of Arlington, Virginia, was fourth in 12:47. $1,000. Bethany Patterson of Richmond, Virginia, 12:54. She got $500. So the third, fourth, and fifth women were only 17 minutes apart. Pretty darn close. Among the men, like I said, it was Tyler Sigel of Wisconsin, 10:28.24. Keep in mind, he beat Amanda by only 12 minutes. And I don't mean to sound so sexist, but nevertheless, it is still quite an accomplishment when a top woman battles right up there with the top guy. And there's just, this is a tough course. You can't say something like, because women have more fat stores. That don't play any role in this race. I'm telling you that right now. This is the badass race as far as like footing goes and that type of thing. Tough race. She is just completely tough. Nevertheless, Tyler Sigel of Wisconsin, 10:28.24. Jeffrey Colt of Colorado was next, 10:36, only 8 minutes behind. Remember, I saw both those guys. Brock Butler, Pennsylvania, 10:49, only 13 minutes behind Jeffrey Colt. Michael Wardian of Arlington, Virginia, 10:57. So those first four guys are within a half hour of each other. And I saw all four of them on the road. Well, Tyler on the grass and the other three on the road. And fifth place, Corey Logston of Nebraska, 12:02. And they got, of course, the same cash prizes. By the way, both fourth place finishers are from Arlington, Virginia. Kind of interesting. So a few little things to finish up about me. What did I eat during the race? Not really a whole lot. I'm not a huge eater. I try to do about a gel every hour. Again, the first half gels, and I switch over to blocks. They're just easier to stomach for whatever reason. The consistency is easier. And then I just nibbled at aid stations. I'm a big peanut butter and jelly sandwich person, but they didn't have those. They had peanut butter and jelly on tortillas. I didn't even try. It just didn't feel right to me. I don't even remember what I ate. I grabbed some Oreos and M&Ms and chips or whatever was there. They had the typical stuff. And they had like ramen noodles. I think a few places had special things like ramen noodles at that second to last aid station. So they had some other things as well. But I'm not a big connoisseur of the aid stations. Like when they make tortillas and quesadillas and all that stuff, I don't usually take those. I do like grilled cheese though. That I will take sometime. That's good stuff. I almost never have soup. I'm not a soup person for whatever reason. One thing I did take was Hot Shots. So if you don't know about that, it's an anti-cramping solution. It works on the exact same principle as pickle juice, which there is science for. So cramping is my nemesis. We've all got our problems, right? That's probably my biggest problem, or one of them. So I took one right before the race. I took one, and then I wanted to take one like every 4 hours and was hoping that would be enough. So I took one at hour 4, hour 8. But at hour 10, when I was on that whetstone, I took another one only 2 hours later. So that was my fourth one already, and I only had one more left. that had to last 9.5 hours. So I made it last just by being as careful as I could, very nervous, but as careful as I could. I didn't take the last one till after the last aid station, kind of like, oh, let's just get it in right now so I don't cramp right at the very end. But I probably could have used a couple more. And having said that, I've been using them for 2 years, and I'm still not sure if they really work. It's a tough thing to really prove, because what am I going to do? Not take them and take that chance that I'm really going to cramp? And I have had a couple of cases where even though I took them, it didn't help. I still cramp like crazy. So I don't know. But that's not to say they're not helping, because they still may be staving off the cramps to some extent, But I'm a severe super cramper. Okay, that's my thing. I cramp like nobody's business. Anyway, I will mention that the sunscreen was smart, that I put that on. Just keep that in mind. Nobody likes to end up all burnt. Bug spray I put on a few places. So if you're like me, you just don't like the idea of ticks crawling all over you, put on some bug spray. A water bottle. I tried a new water bottle. So you may have seen people with these water bottles that have a big stem on them, a big straw on them. And I was always jealous of those people because I don't. And I always have to, and I've heard a lot of people say it's a pain in the butt to pull your water bottle out, and then you have to drink from it and then put it back in. It's just a pain. It's just hard to do when you're trying to run and everything else and you're tired. Well, this one has the big straw coming out. You just leave it in, and the straw comes right to your mouth. So I saw someone at the Hawkeye 50K who had it, and I asked them about it, and I ordered a couple. And it's from a place called Forever Trails, and they have other stuff too, but this is out of Indiana. And I got 2 of their water bottles, and I'm going to give them a thumbs up. It works. So, folks, I would definitely check this out. I'll put a link to it on the website. I got 2 of these. If there's any issue whatsoever, one is it's top heavy because of the big straw coming out the top. It's top heavy. You need to tighten it a little bit more, or it's floppy. This took me a whole 2 minutes to figure out, people. Not a big deal. So just tighten it a little tighter, and it won't flop so much. By the way, the straw goes all the way down to the bottom, okay? So you're drinking from the bottom. You don't have to, in case you're wondering, you don't have to tip it or anything. That's why it works so well. The other thing is, if you tighten it too much, it's hard to untighten. I guess I was just too strong when I tightened it a few times, and when your hands are all sweaty, I couldn't untighten it. I had to hand it to someone like, can you untighten this for me? So don't tighten it like crazy. Don't tighten the lid too much like crazy. You won't be able to untighten the darn thing, which is just stupidly frustrating when you're at the aid station. Your hands are all sweaty and everything else. But I did like that. Okay, Forever Trails. It's got a name on it. I can't even pronounce it. I think it's from China. AONIJIE, whatever that is. Water bottle. I'll put a picture of it and the link to it on the website. Let's see. I will finish with a couple of negatives about this. I don't usually say anything negative. First of all, I'm going to say you need to do this race. Absolutely awesome. A complete thumbs up. I loved it. I'm so happy I did it. Just absolutely freaking fantastic. Okay. James and Francesca are amazing. They're fantastic. This course was so well marked. I never even had a fraction of a moment where I thought I was lost. That is rare. Not a moment. Every turn was well marked. Perfect. So if I have any complaints and this wasn't a complaint for me personally, I had no issues with this, but I do wonder if they need another porta potty or two out there. But again, maybe I just missed it. Maybe I just looked right by it. But luckily I only needed to really use a bathroom once, and I did use it at that aid station I mentioned, and anytime I had to pee, I just peed in the woods, so that's not a problem. But if you're a type of person, you really like porta potties, maybe they need more, but I didn't. I was fine. The other part, and this is unfortunate, they did run out of water at the second aid station, and I have to say I must have been extremely lucky because it was probably right after I went through it. Remember I told you I was probably 80th out of 89. And they had water for me. But I went back out and I saw a friend of mine who was maybe 10 minutes behind me, if that much. When she got there, they had no water. that should not happen. Why it happened, I don't know. And I guarantee you, James and Francesca are absolutely, I have no doubt they were devastated over that happening. I don't know how many it affected. Could have only been a few, but it shouldn't happen to one person. So, I guarantee it will not happen next year. It was because it was so hot and people were probably just, consuming crazy amounts of water, and someone dropped the ball and they didn't get more water out there. It shouldn't happen, but that's why it happened, I'm sure, because of the heat. It's just an unfortunate thing. I will say this, the lady I talked to where this happened to her, Francesca and James made it right with her. They really bent over backwards to do the right thing for her. I'll just leave it at that. They really took care of her after the fact, after this happened. But that's not going to be good when you have to do that 11 miles back in the heat. Not easy. When you don't have any water, it's going to be tough. So anyway, that's kind of the only bad thing that happened that I know about, but I guarantee they will fix that. I would not at all let that stop you from doing the race, because I'm sure they are upset about it. They're more upset about it than anyone, I'm sure. Because I can just tell by being around them. They wanted to put on a very high quality race. James was at the aid station 7 at Slacks, like just cheering me on, telling me, you're 50 minutes ahead of the cutoff. They said, go, go, go. He's pushing and everything. You'll hear Ashley talk about him as well. I think they're very conscientious race directors. One other thing, in the interview with Ashley, you'll hear me say this is a super advanced race. Okay, for me, it's a super advanced race. Okay, I know to some people, if it's not hard rock, it's easy. I understand that. I'm not one of you people. Okay, for me, this is super advanced. All right, so when I say that to Ashley, keep that in mind. I think that's about all I have. We're going to get to the interview with Ashley. Like I said, fantastic race. So let's hear what Ashley has to say. We'll go through her race and a little bit more of mine as we do it. So let's listen to that right now. Whoops, I need to mention that I turned the recorder on while we were still chatting. So at the beginning, we're talking about the fact that she was once out running at Frozen Head State Park and came across a bunch of puppies, and she was written up in the papers. Her and her friends were all written up in the papers about having found these puppies at Frozen Head State Park.
A litter of puppies on the Barkley course, and
I did see that, and you're like famous.
Well, just I'm not famous for running. Unfortunately, I'm famous for finding puppies.
But that was cool. It went all over the place.
Yeah, the story just would never die, really. But that was pretty great. And my friend has one of the puppies, and so we just saw Barkley the other day, and he's getting huge. But
Barkley is the name of the puppy?
Yes, there was 5 puppies, so my friend adopted one and named it Barkley. Another local runner in the area saw the story on the Facebook pages, got a puppy and named it also Barkley. So there's actually 2 Barkleys out there, and then there's a couple others.
Barkley 1 and Barkley 2?
Yeah.
Okay. I am still playing with things. I'm getting my little list of questions on one side of the monitor and you on the other side of the monitor. So
yeah, that's fine.
Let's see what's happening. Blah, 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 blah. I think it's going to be okay. I've actually hit the record button, which is useful because sometimes I can't.
Right.
Yeah, it's easy to not hit it. Okay. So you actually were out running?
Yeah, we were out running. We had we were on schedule to do 14 miles that day, and we were or maybe was it 16? Something like that. We were in the backwoods of the park, and we were just about our turnaround point, and we saw and heard something kind of like out of the corner of your eye. You know how you see stuff out of the corner of your eye, and a little rustling in the bushes, not uncommon out on the trails. And we kind of like looked back, like, what was that? And there was this black little furry pile. I'm like, oh, maybe it's like a dead animal or something. You get lots of roadkill out here too. And we kind of approached it because it was something that was unusual about it, and it was 5 cute, tiny little puppies. They were just, it was too much not to pass up.
What kind of puppies were they again? Do you know?
They are black, mostly black lab mix.
I don't understand why someone just drops them off. If they don't want them, there must be some place to take them.
Yeah, well, this is kind of out in the country a little bit, so the closest animal shelter to take them was about 45 minutes away. Again,
No. Let's kill a bunch of dogs because we don't want to go 45 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And it was really, really cold that day, close to around freezing. We were pretty cold, and the dogs were out there just shivering. They would have easily frozen to death that night.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was cute.
I guess so. So you actually ran today.
Yeah, I was back at it today. I was a little, I haven't run since the race, and I was worried that it was going to be like a peg leg type run,
Yeah.
Where your legs are all stiff and everything hurts and you end up walking it out. But we did all right. We did 10 miles and things are moving pretty well. So
Holy moly.
back at it again.
That's good. I'm purposely just taking a couple of weeks off. So.
That was my original plan, was to take this whole week off, but I started looking at training for the Barkley Fall Classic in September, and I realized it's 17 weeks away and I don't really have time to spare. So I've missed Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like 4 days of running already. So no rest for the weary.
I guess not. Okay. All right. Anyway, let's go through some of these questions. So the first thing I noticed was looking at your ultra sign up, you don't have a ton of races. Am I correct on that?
No.
Not a ton of ultras anyway,
right.
Trail races. So why did you pick UROC? This is a really super advanced race. Or did you not know it was so super advanced?
Why did I pick UROC? It was a spring race. I wanted to push myself something past the 50K mark, which I knew I could do comfortably. So 100K sounded great. This is a traveling race, UROC, and typically they do one location for 2 years, and then they find a different location after that. So I felt like, well, gosh, they did Virginia last year. They're going to do it again this year. Now's my chance. It's close enough. It's not on the West Coast. I'm not flying across the country to do this thing. Felt like it was basically my backyard. So carpe diem, this is my chance to do it. I did not do a 50 miler after my 50Ks. So I jumped straight from 50K to 100K. Typically you don't double your race distance. I don't know that I'd recommend it for someone. So there was that lure of, man, this is my chance to do it. And also I thought it was really cool that this race is open enough that you don't have to qualify for it. You've got a great, deep, elite field, and you can see those people running on the course at this, they're all toeing the line together. I thought that was cool because I'm not an elite athlete, nor am I anything. I wouldn't consider myself especially fast either. So I knew that if I had to qualify, I would never see these people. So I thought it was cool to kind of be sharing the same course, the same race as some of these upper crust elite people, superhumans, if you will.
Did you get your picture? Did you get your picture taken with any of them?
Well, I did with Mike Wardian during packet pickup, and my friend was really kind of geeking out about him, and so he called for a group picture, and I was standing around. So yeah, I ended up
Actually, I think I might have seen that. I got him. I got Amanda Basham and Anthony Kunkel. He's a really fast guy, but he dropped out. But he was in third place.
I would have actually liked him to have met Amanda Basham. She's an outstanding runner.
She
saw her. Yeah. She came in first place, and I saw her at a turnaround point on the course. I was heading into aid station 5, and she was already 4 miles from the finish. She was coming out of aid station 9. She was done. Okay, so she's running literally twice as fast as I am. And she looked fresh and strong, and I was impressed. It was wow.
I saw her about the same point. I was on the road, having just passed
Yeah.
the pond, and I was on the road
Yep.
part, and she went flying by like she's just finishing up a 10K or something.
Exactly. Yeah, that's about where I saw her in the.
I saw Wardy.
Yeah,
I
that's
saw
great.
Michael Wardy in there too. After her, he was right after her.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I don't know how he finished actually in the race. I know he was trying to go for first.
He got fourth among the men. He was the fourth guy. Yeah, I saw the winning guy go by me just after leaving the pond. Right after that, going up the grass hill, the winner came by. So I had like 30 some miles to go, and he's like 3/4 miles from the finish.
Right. A little humbling, but that's what's cool is like here you are, running with these crazy, really talented runners, and I just I feel like I snuck in, like I'm not supposed to be there.
Yeah, right.
I don't realize it, but I lowly back of the pack runner registered for it and snuck in. So
yeah, those people are amazing. Okay, what about just to back up a little bit, the night before, where did you guys eat? Because there weren't a whole lot of eating places, or did you guys cook something or something?
Yeah, so we anticipated that town was going to be 20-something miles away, and my husband suggested that we do a little cookout.
Wait, did you have the white van or something? Like a white
That's
truck?
right. Yep. I support my mom minivan wherever I can. So
Okay, I saw you guys.
You
were cooking out something, right?
Yep. And so I came to the race with 3 other friends and a pacer in my family. So we were kind of a big crew. I knew that we weren't going to be able to sit down anywhere at a restaurant. We were kind of all coming in at different times. So we did a tailgate. We grilled up some chicken, pasta, of course, salad, fruit, homemade bread, water, cookies, and definitely cookies, because sugar is sugar and your body needs it.
Yeah, that's perfect. So you didn't have to take the shuttle in the morning, am I correct? Did you just walk out your door?
That's right. Yeah, we stayed at the
start.
The start of the race.
If you remember, I was walking around the evening before saying, "Is the start really here?" Did you hear me say that? Because I asked you guys. And I was like, is the start here, or is it, because that whole thing is kind of big. It could have been a half a mile away and still been in Camp Blue Ridge. I didn't know where the start. So I was like, are we going to start right outside our door? But I didn't really know that for sure.
So while we were out there sitting around eating, I swear to you, like 30 people came up to us all asking the same question. And I figured it was going to be in that big open field. And we got to joking around like, if enough people ask us, there's only so many people running the race. Enough people ask us, we by majority are going to determine where the race start is. Because everyone's just going to show up where we tell them to.
Right.
And then we win because it's right outside of our hotel room door. And even the limousine, the shuttle guy asked us, is this where the start is? And I was like, no. I'm pretty sure it's just right in this field, and good thing it was, because that's where we told everyone that the start was.
So that was super convenient for the Camp Blue Ridge.
Yeah, amazingly convenient. Holy cow, just open your door, take 20 steps, and you're at the start of the race. It was great.
Very nice. What about the morning? What did you eat before the race? What time did you probably didn't have to get up till almost 5, unless you're just a person who takes a long time to get ready.
No, I woke up at 4:30. I like to give myself a little bit of time to not feel rushed and take care of things, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And
so what did you have to eat? Did you eat anything?
So I'm a little superstitious. On race morning, I like to eat Lucky Charms.
Nice.
And so I had myself some Lucky Charms, and my pacer, amazing friend, she made some homemade blueberry muffins. So I had a little blueberry muffin, some water, bowl of Lucky Charms.
Nice. Lucky Charms. I like that. Although, I guess you had to bring a cooler because there wasn't a refrigerator. You had a cooler for the milk?
I ate it dry.
Oh, I see. Just like a little snack of Lucky Charms.
Yeah. Dairy doesn't sit so well in my stomach, and I thought about bringing soy milk, but I was like, whatever. I'm just gonna eat.
That's a good point. I don't want milk right before I run either. It doesn't sound right.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't sound right. No, it doesn't.
Okay. All right, let's get the race started. The first part, now when I look back on it, was kind of easy, even though it was all uphill, I guess. We kind of ran up to the split. 50K people went to the right, we went to the left, and then we ran up some more gravel to Blue Ridge. It's kind of all uphill, but nevertheless, that was kind of easy because we were fresh, right? Then we get to the first aid station. So I'm assuming up till then things were fine, but how about that 22-mile stretch on Whetstone? How did that go for you?
Um, yeah, that was a brutal, surprisingly brutal stretch. I looked at the elevation chart and I knew that there was going to be some downhill and uphill. I anticipated that. But because of the weather, it made it, brought it up to an element of difficulty that I had not really expected. And I think a lot of runners, you ask the 60-something runners that dropped out, and I think they would probably all agree that the weather in that section of the race was just oppressive.
Yeah.
So it made...
How much water did you have on that part? Like how many bottles or whatever? Or did you have a Camelback type thing?
Yeah, I run with a vest. I had my 17-ounce bottles in the front, one with water, one with Tailwind. I carried about 12 ounces in the back of my reservoir. I probably filled that up at aid station 1. I think I just filled up my jugs maybe a little bit, my water bottles. So going down, once I made it down into the valley to aid station 2, I was dry. I had no water left. I had stopped sweating. I thought, man, I just really made it difficult for myself to finish this race if I'm already dehydrated at aid station 2. And I've got another 11.4 miles to aid station 3. So when I got down to aid station 2, I felt like I had just come out of the Sahara. The water, please. So I topped off everything because I was not going to let that happen again. So I had plenty of water in my pack and, their S-Fuel drink that they were offering. I was too lazy to try to mix my own Tailwind on the fly. I had it with me though. We were apparently close to a creek, which I did not see, but they had buckets of creek water down there. Huh. And some guy asked me if I wanted to, get wet. And at that point I was sweltering and I was like, yes, baptize me. And he just dumped the whole water over my head. It was so refreshing. It was great. And then I snuck some ice out of a cooler and shoved that in my shirt. And I think both of those things really helped me. And of course I drank a bunch and was able to bring myself back up. I felt much better, in 1 or 2 miles. So I hadn't let dehydration get too bad. But I did not let that happen again.
So when you got back to, I guess it's aid station 3, the first one that we get back to, did you drink all your water by then that you had?
No, I did not. I had not drank all my water by then.
No, very good. And
yeah,
that 22 miles, were you still leg-wise, still kind of running okay? Feeling okay leg-wise?
Yeah.
I mean, you're hot and kind of all that, but your legs were still okay? There was some
my legs were okay.
There were some tiny but really sharp up and downs in that section, if you remember.
Yes, there were. And some of those steep inclines reminded me of some of the trails that I had trained on, that I had always cursed those hills. And once I got to the course, it was like, okay, I've been here, done that. I know I can do this.
Some were
wasn't too bad.
Some were kind of slippery. I remember actually using my hands a little bit on the way back, kind of to crawl up a few.
I pulled my poles out.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. It was time for poles at that point. So I had pulled my poles out because it was, some of it was real technical. So I used that.
All right. So you get there, you're still doing okay. You haven't dehydrated yourself to death. Then we retraced our steps exactly back to the split. I remember, which I didn't realize that's what we were going to do, but eventually it dawned on me that's what we just did. So we get back to the split. That part was kind of easy because it was downhill again to where we split.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Yeah, That was like a really
green.
yeah, and it was kind of nice because we were so beat up from the whetstone part that it's like gave us a chance to kind of recuperate. Then
Yes.
there was that gravel road that was up, 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 and then it was grass up, 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 and we went right under the finish, which was kind of cool, and then down to the little pond aid station, right?
Yep.
And then up to Bald Mountain. So back on the road up to Bald Mountain. How did all that part go?
Fairly well. I had to, coming out of aid station 3, I came in separately than my training partner. We started the race together, and
So up until now, you're actually running with someone the whole way?
yes. So all through aid 1, aid 2, we get up into aid 3. 2 miles before aid 3, I ran ahead. I was worried about missing the cutoff because he was getting really dehydrated in the weather, and he was getting heat stroke. He was not doing well. So we walked a bunch of that uphill into aid 3. I found some other runners who were dropping and were literally passing out on the trail.
Oh, wow.
Were throwing up, had slurred speech. They're like falling over. It was that section was really it was The Walking Dead. Everyone in front of me that I was catching up to
before aid station 3 or after?
Before aid station 3. So it's the climb out of the valley, and everyone in front of me and behind me was dropping. They like dropping out of the race. Wow. And they were cashing in the tips. They were it was brutal. So I had spent a lot of time walking that section, got into aid station 3. I figured my training partner, my running partner, wasn't going to catch up to me. And so just as I was leaving aid station 3, he was coming in off the trail, and a little bit of renewed strength, I suppose. And we ran maybe 2 miles, 1.5 miles or so on that, back on the Blue Ridge where it had opened up, and it was real nice and smooth. And I thought, well, I'll set the pace for a little bit, and if he can match me, then we're back on course for finishing and projected finish times. And the heat, he just suffered too much heat stroke, and so he and I ended up splitting. I ran ahead, and so that was hard, to have to leave your training partner in a section so early in the race. Man, I hadn't anticipated that, but it was the heat. By then we had already come into full sun. It was about 2:00 when we got into aid station 2. So it's definitely the heat of the day, and you're climbing out there, and there's water issues, and it's a long stretch with no support. So it was very, very hard part. But I was still feeling okay leg wise, because I hadn't really been running that much the last 10 miles or so, right? So when I got onto that road and it was downhill, it felt so good to like stretch my legs out, like you said, feel refreshed. Coming through, we saw the split and came up through the grassy hill, and we came around by the section, like you said, where the 50K finish was, and which would eventually be the 100K finish.
Right.
I had some friends that were running the 50K, so they were kind of lingering around a little bit to hopefully catch sight of me. So I was able to see those 2 gals that finished the 50K, and that was great just for mood to see a familiar face and happy people that had finished. And since I had just come off of leaving my friend back there, that was hard and deflating. So to have some familiar faces was really great. Checked into the aid station 4, started taking some Motrin just to keep my legs somewhat fresh, and I went around, and just before aid station 5, I saw Amanda Basham coming in super fresh. I'm like, where did she come from?
When you saw her, did you see her on the road or on the dirt road going up to Bald Mountain?
I saw her on the pavement.
Okay.
I saw her on the pavement.
Yeah, me too. You must have been right. We must have been really close together at that point, because that was only a mile or two, and we both saw her on the road.
Yes. yeah, we were probably pretty close to each other, just always around the bend, and didn't realize it.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was what, mile 40, maybe 30s, late 30s,
mid-30s, probably. Yeah, I think so. Something like that. Yeah. So we were barely over halfway or something. I was trying not to think of that. Like these people are going to be sitting there having lunch, basically. Anyway, we get up to Bald Mountain, which was kind of a long walk up this dirt road. Then from there, I remember it's kind of funny because it's like Slacks Overlook was only 2 miles away, but it was like this huge rock garden there. Remember all the rock? I'm going to call them rock gardens. They were like these 100-yard stretches of rocks, which were totally unrunnable. So it took a long time to go 2 miles to Slacks Overlook. And then from there, you did like a circle that was like, you went down, 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 and then up to back up to Slacks Overlook.
Yeah, yep.
So how did
it
that?
was like a 4.4.
Yeah, that's right. The circle was like 4.5 miles. Yeah. So how did all that part?
Yeah. I picked up my pacer just before that 4.5 mile loop or so. And
wait, is this the same pacer? The same pacer you're going to meet up with again later?
Yes.
Ah, okay. So she paced you for a while, and then didn't pace you for a while, then paced you again. Is that what happened?
Yes.
Oh,
yep.
Okay.
Yeah. We wanted to keep her legs fresh,
so
she'd be useful later. So we knew that 4.4 was going to be a little technical and hard, which was great. She was with me, and at that point, I was I don't know if there's a nickname for it, but that haze comes over your eyes where you can't really think straight. And you can't really make good choices, and you don't have a filter. And so coming up out of that valley, I guess, it was getting pretty steep, and I'm like, wow, I feel really tired. I think I'm slurring my words right now. She's like, yeah, I noticed that. I was like, I kind of want to just sit. She's like, why don't you eat something? I'm like, oh, okay. This is why you have crew members and pacers, okay? Keep you straight, keep food in you, keep water in you when you can't make that decision. You don't really know what to do. You know that you just feel bad and tired. So it was great to have her there with me. We came through. I sat down at the aid station, again, packed myself with more ice, water.
This is Slacks, the second time you're at Slacks. That's what you're talking about at this point? Because we went to Slacks, then you did the 4.5 mile loop, then back to Slacks, which I think I left as you were coming in, I think. I'm pretty close to that.
Yep. That would be right.
That's when we were both probably 45 to 55 minutes ahead of the cutoff at that point. Right?
Yes, I was 45 minutes when I got in. I saw the race director there, Gail, and
I saw him too.
Like, hey, of course, when you check in an aid station, you're curious, what's my buffer? And he said 45 minutes, and I said, okay. So, remember this face, because you're going to see me at the finish line, because I was still pretty determined to finish. And he's like, hey, it's not what I do, it's what you do as a runner. So I was like, oh, okay, that's true. And then he proceeded to give me a no sugar pep talk of, if you really want to finish this race, this is what you got to do. And it was good. He helped really refocus me and give me that rally that I needed to push on, because you're far enough from the finish that it's still plenty of work, but you're deep enough into the race that you're plenty tired. So it was nice to see him, and he's like, you can do it. You just really have got to keep moving. And I knew the next stretch coming up. We've had that 1,000 feet in 1 mile gain. Yeah. So I knew I was going to be blowing some of that buffer on that. But 45 minutes is just where I wanted to be sitting. Worst case scenario, I knew I was going to be using that buffer to get out of that thing.
Yeah. So I think at that point, we've still got 20 miles to go. So then from there is another long stretch without an aid station. It was 7.7 miles. And that's where you caught up to me in that part.
That's right.
And we were going down forever, it seemed like, and it was really rocky. Neither one of us was running, but you were at least hiking faster than I was. So there was that really long section. Pardon?
Yeah, the sun was going down, and I kept looking over at the skyline because we were on the ridge, and I thought, man, I've got to run until the sun goes down. This is my last chance for really good visibility. If it is at all runnable, I need to use it, right? Because I'm thinking I'm blowing this buffer time to climb out of here. Let's give myself some cushion. So I'm running as much as I can. That's eventually how I caught up to you.
Yeah.
And then once I caught up to you, it was basically we were turning on our headlamps, still descending, and it's still very technical. And that's when we were using poles, and although I was using poles. I don't believe you had poles.
No poles.
We were walking, and you made a good point. You're like, even if there was sunlight, I don't think I could run this. And you were, right. I couldn't agree more with you.
I said even if it was sunny and I was fresh, I still think I'd be walking. It was just too rocky to get any smooth flow going.
Yeah, and what added, there was a section of rock that was really nestled nicely into the dirt. So that was kind of sure footing, although jagged, right? But then there was a section of loose rock. So we're talking like grapefruit size rocks that were, with every step, every movement was moving underneath our feet. I'm thinking, I'm going to break my ankles on this thing. It's just exhausting mentally, physically, your joints. It's just like, oh, for the love, just give me some dirt, hard-packed dirt for just a little bit, please.
Yeah. Yeah, I was getting kind of negative there. So I'm glad I don't know what even possessed me to try to keep up with you. Because when you passed me pretty good. And then I was like, okay, I'll try to go a little faster. So luckily we did that. So we got that section seemed, I should go back and look, but it felt like it took 3 hours. I'm sure it didn't, but it felt like that 7.7 miles. And even actually the first couple of miles of that was good. It was like this pine needly part. So it was probably only 5 of it. Yeah. But that part took forever, it seemed. I just thought we were never going to, I had visions. We were going to get to the next aid station and find out we timed out. I didn't want to look anymore, But then the very end of that was kind of a dirt road, and we kind of ran, but we didn't know that we only had like a half mile. And we were at that second to last aid station, where I was just like really, and then you had your pacer again. So I got nervous and I just took off, and then you had your pacer. So then we had the part finally with all the creeks, and then the big gigantic uphill. So how did that part go? You must have done pretty well actually. That part. I think because I took off ahead of you and you ended up finishing about the same time I did. So I'm thinking you did pretty well there.
Well, that's flattering. Because we had that buffer, right? Well, I blew all of that 45-minute buffer.
Well, I think we when we got into the second to last aid station, I think we still had 20 to 25 minutes of the buffer left. But that wasn't feeling very good when we knew we had that gigantic uphill ahead of us. So
right, yes, that uphill, that ascension was still very much looming over me, and I knew it was going to be our last trial before we got to the finish. I kept telling myself, if I can get to the top of that mountain, then I'm golden, because then it's just 4.4 or 4 something to the finish line, right?
Downhill, like, most of it downhill.
Yep. And sections of that were pavement, so it was like, if I can just get to the top in the time of the cutoff, I'm gonna be swell. So we had plenty of river crossings. We saw copperhead on the trail. I tried to run and shuffle as much as I could during that. We caught up to another gentleman on that section as well. We did well. My pacer was great. We counted switchbacks going up the mountain. She knew there were 7. She was like, hey, we're going to start to count.
I didn't know that.
So we just counted our way through it and counted them down. And I had another one of those feeling dizzy, exhausted, hungry. Let me just sit here for a second. Just give me 10, 15 seconds to just sit here and shove some more food in my mouth. That helped kind of perk me up a little bit. And as I approached aid station 9, which was like our last gate before the finish,
right.
My husband was up there and he'd come down the trail knowing that I was coming, and he's telling me, come on, Ashley, you got to run. It's just right here. It's just around the corner. And I had a bad attitude at that point. There was plenty of trail behind me that, made me not the most pleasant person. All day I'm thinking, I've been hearing this all day. I can do it. Keep running. So I'm like, okay, whatever. Well, I pull into aid station 9, and first question, what's my time? Where am I standing right now? Because I know it's late. I'm getting close, right?
Yeah.
I know I've done plenty of walking up this mountain. And they tell me that I can't stay. Now, I know what that means. When you roll into an aid station and they say, you can't stay, that means get the heck out of here before I park your butt and you're done.
Right.
So I quickly shove some ice in my shirt again, and I get the heck out of there. And renewed energy, because I'm like, oh man, that was like my last.
So you didn't grab even any more water or anything?
No, I didn't grab anything. I had water still in my pack, and I had some gels shoved in there somewhere.
Right. So that's good.
We ran the gravel road out. My pacer stayed with me till the finish. We ran the gravel road out.
Then it was the Blue Ridge again.
Yep, and then we got onto the road. I tried to eat some gels because I figured I still have 30 more minutes of this race left. It's not over until it's over. So I tried to shove some of those things down my gullet, and it just was not happening. So I was doing the running, heaving, puking
nice.
action there. But I was so grateful that the upset stomach didn't start until, gosh, I had 2.5, 3 miles left in the race. I figured, screw that. I can come in on fumes if I have to. I did not come this far to drop out now when I could, I'm essentially done with the race. It was beautiful. The sky opened up. There was no moon out. There was no clouds out. We had every star in the sky was shining.
Yeah.
It was so great. My 50K finisher gal friends, they came out to the road and found me, and they were running with me, and we finished up the rest of the race. Myself and 3 of my friends, we go back around the pond, back up onto the property,
right,
around the corner, back to where the parking lot was, so you got to see your car again.
Right.
And my family was out cheering me, and I know it's the 11th hour, and it's like, what was great, unfortunately, the finish was up on a hill, but when you're in the middle of the night, finishers like us, the archway is lit up, and you can see from the pond up on the hill, the finish line, and it's lit up, and it's this glorious beacon calling you, beckoning you to run, empty your tank, to finish out strong. And so that's what we did. We ran up the hill and we celebrated. We were hooping and hollering because at that point I realized all day this cutoff time that had been scaring me, that I was going to make it. I blew a bunch of time climbing out of Whetstone early on in the race with my friends and other sick runners. And then to barely make it into aid station 9. My husband later tells me that I had 9 seconds to spare. And they were telling me, she's not in the aid station. We're packing up and she's not in. My husband's like, no. My clock says, 12:12. She's still got time. I had 9 seconds. So I feel very grateful to have skated in on the teeth of my skin. Is not how you should race. You shouldn't cut it that way. It's not how I anticipated the day going. But boy, am I glad to have a finish, even if it is a dead last finish, considering the conditions of the day.
Yeah, there were actually 3 of us that finished within about 10 minutes of each other or something at the end there.
Yeah. It was great to come into you 2 guys had gone ahead of me up on the ascension. And so it was really good to see some familiar faces at the finish line, people that you kind of yo-yo throughout the day, and to see they made it, because so many people did not make it. It was astounding. I've never been in a race with so many dropouts. It's amazing.
Yeah, there was another woman there who, after Whetstone, after we came out of that going down Blue Ridge, she was ahead of me. Then all of a sudden she turns and she's just puking. And I passed her, and I thought, uh-oh. But then later she passed me, and she was one of the other ones sitting there as well. So she must have just gotten in as well. So I was kind of happy to see her because she didn't look good that one spot. But she made it, so that's good. All right, so that's great. Good job.
Thank you. High five.
High five, yeah. A couple of little questions. What shoes did you wear?
I like the Salomon Speedcross 4. I've had several pairs of them, almost every color. So I just buy whatever calories cheapest at this point.
Very good. And so, what kind of poles are those? I don't know anything about poles, I guess. Is it a certain brand or something?
Yeah, those are the Black Diamond Z Trek, I believe. The non-carbon, because I didn't feel like spending an extra $100 to save on 2-3 ounces of weight. I figured that's like I pack extra food. It didn't seem cost effective for me to spend that kind of money. But they are great poles. They're very light and they're collapsible, so they fit in the pack really well.
Yeah, I was kind of jealous. I didn't even think about poles for this race, and I think that's something I'm going to start investing in, because I had a lot of hands on knees. Even at the end, the very last climb up to the big climb up Bald Mountain, but also even at the end going up to the lodge. I was going up that road with my hands on my knees, and people were looking at me, and I think they didn't know. So there was still a lot of people milling around. I think they didn't know if I was finishing or if I was someone just coming back to get my drop back. They didn't know if I was a drop. So people were kind of looking at me going, congratulations? And I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'm actually still in the race. I don't think they knew what I was doing, because my hands were on my knees. Anyway, I'm thinking my shoulders started to feel it because of that pushing on my hands and my knees. So, which means, which means my arms were working, which means poles could have been an even more efficient way to be using my arms and less work on my legs. So I can see how they can really be helpful.
Yeah, I saw a lot of other runners using that same hands on knees technique during that real steep technical parts of the trail.
Yeah.
The poles really help stabilize me on parts that are, again, technical, those rocky sections, or fast descents. I feel a little bit more confident, and I can move a little bit quicker if I know I have the poles to kind of catch me. And of course, later in the race, you're just tired. My toes, I was dragging them. They were catching, and I was tripping on all kinds of things. I am sure, without a doubt, I would have been eating a lot more dirt if I did not have my poles with me to save my face.
Did you have any falls? All the way down falls?
No.
Wow.
I consider a fall two hands on dirt, and I did not have a fall. I had plenty of stumbles, but I was able to catch myself. So that was good.
Yeah, I had 2 good falls, and I also had kind of ripped up legs just from going through like briars and stuff. I don't know if you had any of that, but I had some blood just from going through sticky things as well. But that's okay.
Of the course, they aren't traveled very often, so the brush on either side has really creeped in. You can still see the trail, but it creeps in. It's very much single track.
Yeah. Did you notice? Let me think. Right after Bald Mountain. Okay, right after that, because remember, all I was doing was bitching and moaning to you about the rocks. All right, so right after Bald Mountain,
I loved it.
I know. That's all I did. I was so negative about the damn rocks, and so right after Bald Mountain, no, not after Bald Mountain. Right where we split up, right where I took off, before Bald Mountain. Okay,
aid station 8.
Yeah, so first we actually went up a little gravel road for a little bit, and I'm thinking, yay, gravel road, this is fine, even though it was uphill. And then we went through this little grass, and then there was this bizarre concrete thing. It's almost like a big parking lot. What the heck was that? You have any idea what that was?
Yes, it is a dam spillway.
Oh. It was kind of creepy in a way. And they had these rocks that you followed the rocks over it, and it was like, this is bizarre. Mm-hmm. And then after that, go ahead.
I had learned about that section from, I believe, a race review, last year's race review, or a previous podcast that they mentioned that was coming up. Yeah, I totally forgot about that.
That was weird. Crazy. I actually took a picture of it because it was kind of strange. But then after that, we get back on the single track, which I was like, which wasn't too bad. And I didn't mind the creeks. They felt good, but they kept slowing me down. You have to slow down because each creek had a bank. You had to go down, and then you have to go the other side. And a couple of those we had to crawl up on our hands. So I didn't mind that, but I'm like, oh, this is slowing me down again, And here I am trying to get to that last aid station. But, we made it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, we made it. I'm more than happy.
All right, so I guess that's about it. What you said you had Barkley Fall Classic coming up? Anything else?
So I've got the Barkley Fall Classic. That's just in my back door. That's in Frozen Head, which is approximately, I don't know, 40 minutes from my house. I'm going to be a sighted pacer for the Yeti 100 for Gentleman Who's Blind. That'll be pretty cool.
Very nice.
I'm a couple local races that our Knoxville Track Club offers, doing that. And the next big thing, since I haven't run a 50-mile race, I thought, well, there's a first for everything. I'm going to do the Zion 50-miler, which is next February.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, I'm going to hit up 100K again. So still shopping around for what that'll be. And that'll probably be spring of next year.
Ah, very good. Zion probably be beautiful. Yeah, Barkley Fall Classic.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind trying that, but I'm a cross-country coach, and right now that's always on the same time as a race. Same with Yeti, I think. Unfortunately, in the fall, I have troubles because I'm every Saturday for like 2 months I'm coaching a team. So
that's a scheduling conflict.
So I can't do Saturdays very much, but one of these days I will do. I think I'll try the Barkley Fall Classic. So that sounds.
Hey, if you do, let me know. You've got a place to stay.
Ah, very good. All right. Well, I think that's about it. Anything else you want to add that you can think of whatsoever? I don't know what. No. All right.
Not particularly.
Okay. Well, good job. I'm very proud of you for making it. I'll be totally honest. I had written you off. Not because I thought you couldn't do it, but I thought you weren't going to get to the last aid station. Because I got when I left, when I got in with 10 minutes. I stood there for not long, honestly, probably only 2 or 3 minutes. But that other guy between us, he said he saw you and he said you weren't going to make it. He didn't think you were going to make it. Maybe you were just, maybe just for a moment. Yeah, he did say that. And maybe just for a moment you had sat down or I don't know what, or just took a little break. And he said I think he said he passed you. He goes, she's not going to make it. So I'm like, shit. And so then
because it's so close.
Yeah, well, so that's the only reason. I thought you were just going to time out. And then the last part where I was going up to the lodge, where I said I had my hands on my knees, the very last road, someone said to me, maybe one of your family, I don't know. Someone said to me something like, "Where's Ashley?" I don't know why they were asking me, how they knew I would know. And I said, oh, she's not going to make it. She missed the last aid station. And then, I think I was out of it because either then or maybe the same person said, no, she's right behind you. She's only 5 minutes behind you. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, it's screaming. So I was kind of out of it. But I had written you off. And that guy, maybe it was your husband, I don't know who it was, said, no, she's right behind you. She's going to be here in 5 minutes. I'm like, I can't believe it. You made it.
Yeah, it was... It was outstanding. I mean, a really memorable race day just because that last aid station, man, 9 seconds. That was really going to be heartbreaking if I hadn't made it. But once I made that, I was like, oh, I'm doing this now. I got my last energy. I am absolutely doing this. It felt great to make it to that aid station. And of course, like you said, you meet people out on the trail that you yo-yo and you want the very best for them. So when you can see that they're finishing, and when I go back onto the race results and I see people early on in the race and I look them up and see, how they did or where they dropped or whatnot, it's always really great to see people succeed. So it was great to roll into the finish line and to see some of the people that, like yourself and Jason, the gentleman ahead of you, or around who he had also finished. That was probably who was telling you.
Yeah, that's what it was, because he came into the last aid station like 2 minutes after me, and he's the one that said, you're not going to make it. And then he passed me on the road. I actually walked almost the whole way. I was starting to cramp. I was starting again to cramp a little, and so I pretty much walked the very last part, almost all of it. Yeah. But so he passed me. He finished right before me. So him, then me, then you. So anyway, it was great. We made it. That's what counts.
We made it. We don't have to go back next year. Hallelujah. Which in return, I was thinking they only do this race 2 years. Well, I asked the race director, where is it going to be next year? Hoping that there'd be some great new location. And they're going to offer it the same course, the same weekend. I think give all those runners a chance to redeem themselves on the same course. Yeah. I will not be there. It is a brutal time of year. Yeah. I wish everyone else next year the best of luck.
Yeah, no kidding. The one thing we can say we were lucky in, there was no mud, at least. I mean, I suppose it could have been a bunch of mud, but At least it was dry.
Yeah,
So
this is true.
yeah.
There was no mud, and I didn't get to really fully enjoy the creek crossings. My early daydreams of the race were, I'm going to get to a creek crossing. I'm going to sit in it. I'm going to cool myself off.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. No, I had no time for that. Are you kidding me? It was like, just go, just keep moving. You cannot stop for anything.
Yeah, that is true. All right. Well, anyway, thank you very much. Good luck with your future races. All right. Maybe I'll see you again sometime.
That would be wonderful. Thank you so much for all your encouragement out on the course. And I'm so very glad that I was able to prove you wrong.
You ate some of my.
I made it.
You ate some of my sport beans. Do you remember that?
You know what? I do. I asked you if you had sugar.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. You said, do you have any sugar? And I had extra, so I gave you some of those. 5 minutes later, you go snack time, and you pull the goo out. So you had goo. You had goos, but I guess you forgot that you had it. You were like really bonking right there.
Yeah,
you were saying I don't feel so well, but then like 10 minutes later, you were good.
That's right. That's right. You know, some parts of the course are a little hazy. Yeah. Well, I was hoping that you'd have like gummy bears or like chocolate or something really good. You had 4 things. I was like, well, okay, anything's better than nothing. So I'll take those. I just didn't really want to stomach another goo. I had, I don't know, probably like 18, 20 of those stupid things that day. You know, I was just kind of done. And, yeah, the sports beans were great. Yeah, and then snack time.
That's why you finished. I'm taking full credit. It was the sport beans.
Yeah, it was the magic beans.
All right.
And then singing. Do you remember singing? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Like, do you remember singing the song?
You were singing John Denver, "Take Me Home, West Virginia." You sang that. You sang My Girl.
Maybe was there Sunshine on My Shoulders?
Yes. And then I was trying to sing Little Arrows, and then the Miley Cyrus Zippity Doo-Dah song.
That's right, Little Arrows. I still don't understand that song. I've never heard it before.
Yeah, Tommy Rowe. It's from the '60s. You're too young. It's Tommy Rowe. He also did the song called Dizzy. Anyway.
Well, I was feeling dizzy. Maybe that would have been more appropriate. It's great. You know, I feel like in every race there comes a point where, you just need a little bit of some music or something. Your brain just gets bored of the miles, so a little bit of music.
It's because every time.
Stupid humor.
Every time you saw an arrow on the ground, you'd say, arrow, arrow. And every time you saw a flag, you'd say, flag, flag. So that's why I started singing Little Arrows.
Yeah, and that's really where I was at. It was just like, just get yourself the next arrow, get yourself the next flag. And it also was like, hey, look, we're still on course. We did not make a wrong turn. I heard several people made some wrong turns. And in the dark, it's easy to make a wrong turn or to lose track of your arrows. So I felt like, man, if I announced it, I'm proving to myself I'm making progress, and we're still on course.
Right, exactly. That's true. All right, well, thank you again, and I will hopefully see you another time.
Yes, we'll see you in Facebook land.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, there you go. Thank you very much, Ashley. That was great speaking with you. And just thank you very, very, very much for talking to me. And thank you again for being my angel and pulling me through the race. I owe you one. If you ever need anything, Ashley, call on me. I owe you one for that. I guess I don't know for sure, but I cannot say I would have finished without you pulling me through that that long, tough section. A few notes about things. I made a little technical mistake. I said it was Tommy Rowe who sang the song Little Arrows. It was not. It was Leapy Lee who sang the song Little Arrows. Also, I ordered the poles that Ashley used because I've just decided I think that would make sense. My arms and shoulders and triceps were really, really tired and sore, which means I was using them a lot to push on my thighs. And obviously, or at least I think, poles would be a lot more sensible, a lot more effective than hands-on thighs. Plus, you can use the poles for stabilization and going downhill and all that type of thing. So I have the poles on order. One thing that I think I should do, one thing I learned from the race that I think I need to do more of, or there's 3 things I came up with. One is more Stairmaster work with the weighted vest. I have done this, but I need to do more of it because I don't have mountains, and that's the best way for me to have a mountain. Put on a weight vest and do Stairmaster. I need to do more sessions of that. I'm pretty good at uphill, and I'm comparing myself to myself here, not compared to others, but as far as I go, one of my better strengths is going uphill as opposed to my downhill, which is horrible, or my technical running, which is horrible. But I'm okay going uphill, but I could still make it better. The other thing I could do more of is just more hard downhill running sessions. I did do a couple of really good sessions in the month before the race, and you can't do them too often, but I did a couple where I really trashed my quads, or I was sore for a couple of days, but maybe a little bit more of those would be good so I could toughen up the quads a little more. The other thing I need to do more of personally is long, fast hikes. Because I get to a point where, like I said, because of the cramping, I can't run, so I'll just start hiking. I can usually do that. But that actually creates some issues with like my Achilles and my calves. I think you just stretch your Achilles and calves differently. And I do hike every week. I do a hike. But usually it's only maybe up to 2 hours. I need to get out there for 3 or more hours and really hike fast. It's hard to push yourself to hike fast when you're kind of on your own and not in a race and you don't have a cutoff. But in a race, I have a cutoff. I start hiking as fast as I can, and I start getting strains in my Achilles and my calves. If you go back to my Tunnel Hill episode, I talked about that. My Hallucination 100. Back in last August, September, I did the Hallucination 100, and I actually injured myself from hiking. And I'm still not paying attention to that. I need to get out and do 3 or 4 hour hiking sessions where I just hike as fast as I can and really build up my Achilles and calves more doing that. And otherwise, I'll finish with one last thing. I talked to Ashlyn after all this, and I said, did anything else pop into your mind? And she said, well, one thing that was spectacular about the course was between Aid 1 and 2, that's the Whetstone Ridge. Along the ridge line, there were miles of wildflowers, lily of the valley, azalea bushes, and blooming blueberries. It made the air fragrant, and with views of both valleys on either side, it was like Eden. So I'll just leave it at that. And there were some absolutely beautiful views and beautiful sights. I've got a bunch of pictures on my website you can look at. So again, that's it for today. Thank you, Ashley, very much for everything. Remember that this show will pop up on YouTube eventually, so you can tell someone to watch that if they want. Go to runsmith.net for more information about me. And that's it. This is Run Smith Enterprises presenting Topics in Endurance Sports. Signing out. Have a fun workout.